Hi. Today I'd like to share some thoughts on our latest sander offering from Hutchins, the Profinisher line of sanders, soon to be released. As I've traveled the country, I've received many questions about the tools, and I thought this might be a good way to share some of the reasoning behind it and some of the history of Hutchins that actually gives you a better idea of what allowed us to come up with the technology to give us the Profinisher line. In order to look at the Profinisher, you first have to start with our roots. Al Hutchins, the founder of our company, came up with what is now known as our 800 sander a little over 50 years ago. It was revolutionary at the time and actually sped the process of body work immensely, making people much more efficient in the way that they did body work. About 40 years ago, we came out with the 4500 sander, which again revolutionized the way that the job was being done. Going from a straight orbital to a random orbit gave a better pattern and allowed people to finish in much less time. Most recently, our offering of the 3500 sander line about 15 years ago gave us a more up-to-date profile, something that people were looking for as far as a little bit lighter weight, a little bit more comfort as far as operation. But one thing in common with all of these tools, with the exception of the Profinisher, is that we started with a technology that Al Hutchins developed 50 years ago, and we constantly changed that. We made it bigger or smaller or fatter or skinnier, whatever we needed to do to modify the standard procedures to make a tool that we felt the industry needed. The problem with that is that 50 years ago, when Al designed the 800, labor was just a tiny, tiny part of the overall process, where in fact today, labor is the overwhelmingly most important part of any manufacturing, whether it's a sander or a car or whatever it might be. For that reason, we find the influence of import sanders coming in mainly from the Pacific Rim at a price point that's much lower than what you find domestically available. The problem with that concept is that most of the import manufacturers are very good at replicating with very low labor costs. However, when you come to technology, they really don't have that to offer. The one thing that's made America great, and certainly also Hutchins great, is the fact that we have been able to implement new technology as we develop new sanders. And that's really the case with the Profinisher. We took a look at our competition and we looked at our marketplace, and the marketplace has changed substantially. Years ago, 8-9 years ago, the sander market was one that required a very high quality tool that people expected to be able to send to the factory to a local repair center to be rebuilt. When today you look at the marketplace, you don't find things like microwave ovens or televisions being repaired. They're discarded and replaced. And in the automotive aftermarket, that's what we found with the palm sander market, is that people don't buy tools for their longevity. They buy them for what they consider to be a good, useful purpose, and then they're replaced. When you look at the 3500, that tool was designed to be repaired and offer a 35 or 40 year service life. But again, when you're not offering the product that people are looking for, it makes it very difficult to be competitive. As I mentioned to Almy Hutchins, when you make the best orange, it doesn't matter if people are buying apples, you're not going to sell your orange. And that's really the case that we've seen over the past couple of years as the market's developed. Now, we can't compete with the offshore companies that are manufacturing sanders as far as labor costs are concerned. What we can do is we can actually try to develop a tool, as we have with the Profinisher, that allows us to be competitive but for different reasons. The only way that we can be successful is not by reducing our labor costs as far as cost per hour, but reducing the hours involved in manufacturing the tools. That's where our savior comes in. The 3500 has been a great tool, but again developed from the standard platform of the 800. We really had no benchmark to determine if we were doing it right. So we started analyzing with a blank piece of paper, and we started to take a look at what we do now and how we can change that to be more efficient. The 3500 series tool, a great tool, fabulous tool in the marketplace, When we started looking at how we make that tool, we started with the assembly process. And it takes from start to finish, from the time that we have parts laid out for assembly to the time it's ready to go in a package, about 35 minutes. That's the different people handling different parts of the assembly process. We didn't know if that was good or bad. We just knew that that's what it took. So we started looking at ways that we could reduce some of that assembly time. And in the Profinisher, we've been able to reduce that time from 35 minutes to approximately 10 minutes. What that means is a savings of 25 minutes per tool simply in assembly. It has nothing to do with the manufacturing or in the packaging side of it. As far as manufacturing, these tools have 2 bearing cups. Bearing cups come to us in bar stock. We cut the bar stock and we have 5 machining processes that we do to that bearing cup before we assemble the bearing into that. We went back to our bearing supplier and said, can you help us with that? Do you have people, local manufacturers or local machinists that can help us with that procedure? We had a bunch of people that were more than willing to work with us on that. Now what we're doing is we're buying the bearing cups for the Profinisher as a finished product as opposed to the raw materials and machining them ourselves. We were able to save a tremendous amount of time and money by having that procedure done. If you look at the pads, for example, this yellow pad is a pad that we actually make. It's our patent. We do everything in-house with that. Yet the red pad that's on the Profinisher is a pad that we buy. We buy it from a company that makes it in the United States. Again, everything on that tool is manufactured in the United States. But we can actually buy it from a person who specializes in making pads cheaper than we can make it ourselves. That way it makes a lot more sense when it comes to utilizing people and their strengths. That really is the whole focus on the Profinisher sander. During the process of manufacturing the Profinisher, we were able to do a lot of what the industry has asked for, which is lighten the tool up, lower the profile, and make it a more ergonomic sander. That's been a big part of our drive, is to make sure that we have sanders that people want to buy and people want to use. And the Profinisher will deliver that. A couple of other things that we've done for the Profinisher is to try to make it very much user-friendly. If you buy a Profinisher sander and either decide to switch to vacuum sanding, or if you have an opportunity to go to a shop that has vacuum sanding in place, typically on a standard sander you'd have to send it back into Hutchins to have us convert it, and that would lose time and that would cost extra money in transit, and we try to avoid that. When it comes to the Profinisher, you remove the pin, you insert in the shop, you insert the vacuum tube pickup, attach it at the attachment point beneath the tool, remove the pad, you then remove the shroud, replace it with a vacuum shroud, and also replace it with a vacuum pad, and now you have a vacuum sander. Also in the past, what we've done is we've had various offsets for sanders. We've had 3/16 for aggressive sanding, and we've had 3/32 for finish sanding, or the paint shop. We've designated that by different colors, and you'll notice that in our catalog we've got blue sanders for finishing sanders and red sanders for bodyman sanders. That duplicates many parts, so we have them sitting in inventory, which costs us a lot of money. What we've done on the Profinisher series is we've changed the designator in the air fitting. So the air fitting with a red would be a 3/16 or a bodyman's sander. An air fitting in blue, anodized in blue, would be for the painter. So again, what we've done is we've tried to simplify from our standpoint, but still have the identity that Hutchins has tried to maintain. Lastly, on the sander, what we've done is we've tried to look at packaging as a way not only to save costs, but also to make it a little bit more friendly to the user. All of our packages on our standard lines, whether it's an 800 or 2000 or 4500 or 3500, have been a very sturdy overbox with protective packaging inside. Very costly, but very effective. And what we found is that those packages are obviously thrown away as soon as the sander is delivered, so the packaging really is just a way to get it to the place. What we're doing with the Profinisher is we're actually putting this in a clamshell. And what the clamshell will allow to do in an overpack, we'll reduce our packaging costs substantially, but we'll be able to have a display package that will allow the distributors to put this sander out front, either on peg hook or in a display cabinet, so the customers can take a look at it. Ultimately, the big feature of the Profinisher is that we have been able to produce a sander in the United States with American components, made by Americans, in American shops, that will compete head-to-head on a price point, and certainly on a performance standpoint, with any of the sanders coming in that are imported. This gives us a tremendous advantage, and I think that the time is now that we can actually claim back the sander market from a standpoint of American-made for Americans to be used in our shops. That's it for now. More updates will follow as we get closer to the launch, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.